You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I am Jonathan Giles from All on Georgia Douglas, All on Georgia Carroll. Here with me, as always, is Jessica Szilagyi. Great hair for a podcast. We're doing well. We have Matt Lowe here.
I managed to stay out of jail last night.
Yes, he did. And I got to break off with a quick story about Matt here. That this isn't on any of the list, but I thought it was hilarious. If you're a regular listener of the show, then you know that Matt has been involved in some issues with the city of Dallas regarding ORRs for quite some time. As a matter of fact, just last week he nominated Chris Carr, Attorney General, for Loser of the Week because he claimed that Chris Carr's office was not responding. Matt, can you tell us about what happened today with that? Give us a little update on Chris Carr's office and the response.
Well, I sent my daily complaint to the office, and it wasn't long, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And my phone rang, and it was an Atlanta number, and I picked it up. And it was Jennifer, the lady at the Attorney General's office that I've been emailing. And she was like, "Have you not been getting my emails?" I said, "No." She said, "I've been sending them." And I'm like, well, that explains a lot. So I kind of feel bad because she has responded to me. She has even been in contact with Glenn Stinson, and now we're communicating through my personal email. But that's kind of, I think that it's going to rectify itself. It's in the process of it anyway. But the most that I can find is it looks like she didn't reply to me until about a week ago. So there was a full solid week of nothing.
But still, there was also apparently a full solid week of you just sending this woman the same email every day for
right,
no real good reason.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I think the second time I got that after I'd replied, I'd be like, you know what? Let me give this guy a call. See what exactly is going on here, because this is weird.
You know what? Maybe she just wanted to see what kind of persistence you had.
Right.
And speaking of doing things for no apparent reason, we've now learned that Dick's Sporting Goods is going to destroy their AR-15 inventory. I will go ahead and preface this by saying that this article came from the NRA ILA. So after what they did to Yeti last week, you can take that for what it's worth.
Right.
But apparently, if you're a business, don't do business with the NRA, because if you ever decide to stop whatever promotional agreement you have with the NRA, they will bury you.
Well, I just want to say,
done.
Clearly Dick's Sporting Goods has nobody in their marketing department that has even a few likes on at home. Because if they wanted to redeem themselves after all the people that they ticked off after Parkland, they could have donated these to a police organization or the military, or done something instead of destroying their own inventory, things that they paid for. It doesn't even make sense.
Oh yeah, and and that's the thing is I used to work for a firearms manufacturer, and that was one of the things that we did. We would do it every year for a tax write-off. We would donate a certain number of rifles to law enforcement agencies because it's something that if you're a listener in the Metro Atlanta area, it's probably kind of hard for you to fathom, but you get into the more rural parts of the state, and there's a lot of agencies where they have trouble even buying bulletproof vests, much less getting much less, getting AR-15s and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely correct. These, if they want to get rid of them, they should have donated them.
I've always...
But,
what's funny, though, well, not funny, haha, but they, not only are they destroying the inventory of guns, they're destroying the inventory of accessories as well. So I can only assume that means magazines, sights, slings, whatever else.
It's stupid. There are so many agencies and entities around our country where they could have actually done good and they could have redeemed themselves from just like a non-political thing, but they continue to make this political, and it's going to... Right. But again, like I've said before, I feel like the people who work at Dick's have always taken the name as an instruction on how to beat everybody, and so I've never been a Dick's fan anyway.
But, and the other thing that they did was they split. I don't know if you have a Dick's anywhere near you, but here they kind of split the store in two. And there's Dick's Sporting Goods, which seems to center more on all of the like soccer, golf, that kind of crap, right? And then there's an attached store now that's Field and Stream.
That kind of crap, huh?
Sports ball.
Right.
Matt doesn't think it's a sport if something doesn't die.
Right? If there's no blood involved, it's not a sport. But, no, I don't know. Just... the whole thing's stupid. It's like you said. It's needless. It's senseless. Senseless political posturing.
Yeah. And hey, what a fantastic segue. Speaking of senseless political posturing, Senator Bernie Sanders is set to announce a federal jobs proposal that would guarantee a job with at least $15 per hour wage and health benefits to every adult American, quote, who wants or needs one. That's according to the Washington Post. The senator is still in the early stages of crafting the plan. And Sanders' office has yet, as I said in the beginning of this, they have yet to release the details of the plan's funding. So we haven't really gotten to the funding yet. But, that's standard Bernie Sanders fare. The first step is what we're going to do, and the second step is how we're going to pay for it. So it's that ready, fire, aim approach to government.
I just find it ironic that a man who calls himself an economist, Derek Hamilton, was quoted in the article saying, "The goal is to eliminate working poverty and involuntary unemployment altogether." I don't even know what that means, like in an actual practical standpoint. Involuntary unemployment altogether. There are jobs out there.
Yeah.
I'd have to look and see. I'm sure there's some crazy definition of what involuntary unemployment is. I wonder if because they typically call that underemployed, don't they? Yeah, involuntary unemployment occurs when a person is willing to work at the prevailing wage, yet is unemployed. Involuntary unemployment is distinguished from voluntary unemployment, where workers choose not to work because their reservation wage is higher than the prevailing wage. Now, the interesting thing about that is, and I don't know if that's specific to... Like, I'm curious about that definition, because the term prevailing wage is a union term. And I see that in my day job where I bid construction jobs. If there's an item or something in the contract that calls that it's going to be prevailing wage, then that means that it's a union job. And union wages are typically considerably higher than non-union wages. So I'm curious if that prevailing wage in that definition is referencing union pay?
It's a very good question. We have some aggressive drivers in this
Matt
state,
Lowe.
apparently. Yeah. Well,
Me? No.
no, see, that's the thing is that, Matt is the cure for the aggressive driver because, it's like when you see Matt's truck, and I'm not going to describe it on the podcast, I'll just leave it as when you see Matt's truck, you quickly understand that that's a truck where a gun lives. So
I do have, people tell me I have the most recognizable truck in Paulding County.
yeah.
That's true. There is no doubt whose truck it is.
Yeah, Matt has one of those vehicles where when the cops pull him over, they just sit there until backup pulls up behind them.
I've only been pulled over once. In like recent memory. Nah, twice now. Both times they let me go. Both times they commented on their love of my arrangement of stickers.
Well, that in my experience working in law enforcement, everything on your back window just screams to me that I'm going to walk up to that window and the first thing I'm going to be asked is, am I being detained?
Really?
Yes.
See, I think I get the opposite because the flag sticker seems to indicate veteran, but either way, like I legitimately should have had both tickets, and they let me go with a warning.
Well, Georgia has an aggressive driving accident, or an aggressive driving incident, rather, every 8.2 minutes. Connecticut also has the same, and California is way in the lead with an aggressive driving event every 6.6 minutes. Those aggressive driving events are hard braking, brake checking somebody. Speeding is the second aggressive driving, and rapid acceleration is the third most common type of aggressive driving.
I will totally brake
behavior.
check someone. Like you.
So basically, if you drive a little Porsche like Jessica does, and you drive it like it's meant to be driven, you're an aggressive driver.
It's not a Porsche, it's a Land Rover.
Anyway, why did you say that brake checking is a woman thing?
No, it's not, man. I'll brake check the hell out of somebody in a heartbeat.
Well, I guess it's just because, I guess it's just kind of a family type deal, because it's like with me, I never brake check anybody. I've never seen my dad brake check anybody, but my mom will. She'll brake check the hell out of somebody.
Man, I put a switch in my truck that disconnects my brake lights. I flip the switch, slam on the brakes, and cash a check.
I wouldn't put that on a podcast, Matt. Well, it's about time for a new truck. This blonde chick in the Land Rover behind me looks like she can afford it.
And then you pull over and turn the lights back on.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So tonight, what we're going to get into is we are going to have a very thorough, entertaining discussion about the governor's candidates in Georgia. The GOP governor candidates, to be specific. Next week on the show, we're going to be covering the Democrat candidates and their positions on the issues. As always, but especially here, these are our views and not necessarily the views of All on Georgia or anybody else. So we're gonna get very, very real, and we're gonna tell you exactly what we think on the issues concerning the governors. But as you come to expect from All on Georgia, this is going to be well cited, well researched. We're not just throwing things out randomly. These positions that we're going to lay out for you are positions that can be found in candidate statements, candidate interviews, readily accessible media. So, everything that we're giving you on these issues has been well researched.
Whatever, man. I got called a bomb thrower today. I'm going to throw bombs at this thing.
Well, I mean, you are a bomb thrower, but you're throwing bombs with proper accuracy. So
well, now
that's what
I'll
matters.
also say that by this time everyone is listening to this, All on Georgia will have sat down and spoken with all of the candidates in the Republican race except for Casey Cagle, Mark Urbach, and is it Eddie Hayes? I haven't heard much about him. I don't even know how to.
Who?
Yeah.
Who? Yeah,
There are
right,
7
what?
people in the race. But All on Georgia has sat down with Brian Kemp, Hunter Hill, Clay Tippins, and Michael Williams. And of the top 5, the only one who has not had a chance to sit down with All on Georgia is Casey Cagle. So a lot of these are coming.
And Casey Cagle, I will throw out right now. Casey Cagle, you are more than welcome to sit down with the All on Georgia podcast. Let me tell you why you're wrong. And we'll do a long form interview with you. So if you want to reach out to us, just reach out to Jessica at allongeorgia.com. Have your people get in touch with my people, and we'll have you on the show.
Your email's going off right now, isn't it, Jessica?
Ding, ding.
Yeah.
He probably wiretaps this show. He uses that new Unterman bill. It's his prime usage for it. He sits in his house listening to our podcast live.
Right. And then Josh McMillan.
Oh, you think so?
She was a co-sponsor.
Old McCoon. He's going to make Georgia the easiest state in the nation to start a business and the toughest state in the nation to cast an illegal vote.
Okay, we'll see.
All right, but yeah, we're not here tonight to talk about Secretary of State candidates. It's a whole nother issue for a whole nother show. What we are going to start tonight with is we're going to start tonight with taxes, everybody's favorite thing. Matt, what do you think about taxes?
They're theft.
Thank you. We're going to start with Michael Williams.
Hold on. I just think we should say, who the candidates are first, just for...
Well, didn't you already do that?
I said which one sat down with us, but,
okay.
I mean, we don't have to.
Well, what's the deal? Why isn't Cagle on the tax thing? Does he not have a...
I mean, I couldn't do everything last night. I was kind of hoping y'all knew some stuff.
You thought we knew some stuff? That was your first mistake. Okay, so...
Yeah, we did kind of leave this one on her.
Yeah, we're just going to... Let's see. Casey Cagle. Taxes.
Using your Google machine.
Yeah.
Dude, I said Google machine. Where the hell was I? Because someone I didn't even know. Oh my God, I don't remember where I was, but I laughed my ass off because I say Google machine now, and somebody said Jonathan Giles, and I laughed my ass off.
It is
I may have
scary.
been standing in the aisle at Academy.
It is scary. I mean, it's like today I was in court, and this lady walks up to me, and she's like, "Are you Jonathan Giles from All on Georgia?" And it's one of those deals. I hesitated for a second because it's like, do I lie? What do I do here? But, you can't lie. So, it's like, yeah, I am. She's like, you're awesome. I just so appreciate you coming and keeping an eye on things in the courtroom. I'm like, yeah, well, unfortunately, I'm just here for the Peterson v. Harris. Today was divorce day anyway in court, so there was nothing real exciting going on, other than one of the girls that was that had a divorce hearing was actually in jail, so they had to go downstairs and get her. So you talk about a bad day. Your divorce hearing comes up. You're already in jail. You have to come to your divorce hearing wearing the inmate jumpsuit. Okay, we have fallen off topic.
Well, that's because you were Googling.
Yeah. Okay, so the only thing that I can find after a cursory search, which is all Casey Cagle has worked to me on this issue, is a bunch of articles about the Delta tax break. So what we're going to go with here is that Casey Cagle supports tax breaks for billion-dollar corporations.
Well, his website states that the conservative leadership delivered a historic $5.7 billion income tax cut for hardworking Georgians.
Well, let's remind ourselves that was for 1 year. And the deal even said during the session that it's too much that's unpredictable and unstable right now to actually put a permanent tax break in place or to reduce the income tax across the board. So it was just for this year and next, I think, or last tax year and this. It's not
right. It's all he really says is, as governor, I will remain committed to lowering taxes through conservative tax policy. My administration will allow families and small businesses in every county of Georgia to experience true prosperity.
He will allow us to experience true prosperity. Wow. Thank you, King Casey.
If it pleases
my
the crown.
Lord, have mercy.
Right. Well, there's theory that the government believes that all money is theirs, and they allow us to keep, what we do. And that kind of says it. I mean...
So next we move on to Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp is he's not backing any specific proposal, but he does want to return excess money to taxpayers. Not sure what excess means in that. I mean,
I think
are you talking like a return, or are we gonna?
Yeah,
we're gonna zero or
there's
what?
been legislation. I think State Representative Stephen Allison, who retired back in 2016. He wanted to do an income tax return, after everything had been paid, instead of coming back and amending the budget, money would actually be returned to taxpayers. And, they would see an effect of it instead of saying, oh, well, we have all this money left in the bucket. How can we spend it? And I think that's similar to, Casey Cagle has kind of spoken on that in some of the debates too, but Brian Kemp hasn't really, and I sat down and talked to him, and he didn't really have a set plan on that, other than, by other
yeah,
programs.
His 4-point plan seems to really touch on it. If you look at his website, the second tier of it is reform the state government, and he's talking about implementing spending caps that adjust with population, and then eliminating wasteful programs and tax incentives. But yeah, there's nothing real specific about what he wants. He does say that he is calling for an audit of special interest tax breaks. He does want to preserve the film tax credit.
I'm not a fan of the film tax credit, but it has brought a lot of business to our state, and I think it disproportionately hurts smaller businesses, but that can't afford to invest the same amounts that they do. But that's another topic. But.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, if they go to if they were to look at a consumption based tax, then of course that would get rid of that.
So, jumping out of order a little bit,
Yeah, we are.
I spoke with Clay Tippins recently, and he said that one of the questions I asked him was, it's 2026, you've been governor for 8 years, what's your legacy? And he said that he wanted it to be that he, drastically reduced the state income tax and was running government more efficiently. And I don't want to ruin the interview or keep anyone from watching it, so I won't get into too much of it. But I mean, he wants to reduce the number of state employees, and then without firing anybody, and then cut down on some of the agencies, and then basically make it cost less to operate the government. And that's how he plans to reduce the state income tax, which is, give credit where credit's due. That's a totally new vision than some of these other candidates who are just saying the same thing that we've heard for 10 or 12 years now.
Right. Yeah, no, it is a pretty interesting. It is a pretty interesting idea. This idea of, basically there's so many of these state employees that are set to retire in the next 3 to 5 years. Just let them and don't replace them.
That's right.
That seems to really be, that is, that's not the standard government thinking.
Yeah.
When it comes to government employment.
Well, and people don't realize how expensive it is to have a state employee because of all the benefits and the pension and everything else. And I'm not saying that some of the people haven't earned it, but it's just expensive, and it continues to become more and more expensive, especially with the cost of healthcare. We're not even talking about state employees. I'm looking at a local board of education down here, and their healthcare costs are like $2 million a year for a county of 12,000 people. That's how much it costs for their teachers and everything. So you think of that for a small school district, you're not even looking at the state level where we just have, 60,000 employees or something? 65,000?
Right.
So it's definitely innovative. I'll give him credit for that. I think the idea will scare a lot of people, but it's not like he's just going to go in there and shut it down. But I'll give him credit for having a different idea.
Hunter Hill, he wants to eliminate the state income tax. There's a lot of our neighbors are doing that. Tennessee does that. I believe Florida does that. So certainly not a left field idea. Certainly some precedent there. So
he's gotten a lot of flack for it, though, from some of the establishment and insiders who say that we just can't do it, and our state is so financially sound right now, which depends on how you look at it, whether or not that's true. But it's interesting that there are it always amazes me that there are Republicans that are opposed to going to a consumption-based tax.
Well, we got a lot of Republicans, and they voted in a lot of new taxes over the last couple of years. We say things like the largest tax hike in state history. That was that self-adjusting gas tax that keeps going up. And then that ad valorem tax for your car tag, when they went from, they called it a birthday tax, right? And now you just pay it when you buy the vehicle. But really what that was a grab at private sales.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
that was a way to tax private vehicle sales.
Right. Yeah, and look, I get it. Because I've done that before. Me and my ex-wife, we didn't want to buy a tag for a vehicle, so every 28 days we transferred the title between the two of us. Paid each other $1. Did that for a year and a half.
On this podcast with two of the largest con artists in our state, between Matt and his new vehicle.
Hey, tax avoidance.
Says the guy who brake checks people for a new bumper.
That's awesome. I never thought about that.
Yeah. All right, and last is Michael Williams. Michael Williams, he favors the fair tax. So he's which the fair tax is also a consumption tax. In general, you're going to end up with basically the same as with the reduction or removal of the state income tax. However, Michael Williams also wants to increase law enforcement pay through state action. So he's on the Back the Blue thing. Back the Blue is something that I think all of us have been vocally opposed to, not because we oppose law enforcement, but because it's just an insane idea. I mean, you go down into rural Georgia, and there are lieutenants who are not making $38,000 a year.
Right.
And, so it's, so I mean, you're going to be bankrupting entire counties with this. And, not only that, but, you have to think about the other issues. Look, if I'm a lieutenant and I've been through, tons and tons and tons of training, do you think that I'm just going to let everybody under me have a raise and I'm not going to go demand one for myself? That's one issue. Now, here's the other issue. Let's say I'm not a cop. Let's say I'm a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
You think that I'm not going to start raising all kind of cane because because now all the cops are making like double what I'm making as a fireman? Yeah, it's gonna. There's a lot of issues that need to be sorted out and looked through there. Yes, we all want our law enforcement to be paid more, but this state mandate, which is essentially a minimum wage, but it's just a minimum wage for a specific job, it has the same problems as any minimum wage issue is going to have.
I'm going to say something about it, and this is it's probably going to be wildly unpopular.
A lot of things you say are. So proceed.
Now, I say this with family in law enforcement, right? But typically, the qualifications for most police agencies that I know of are a GED or high school diploma, a clean criminal background, and the age of 21. So, I mean, you're not talking about a master's degree or anything like that. I think that 12, 14, 15, $16 an hour, is decent pay for that minimum set of requirements.
I don't know if I agree. I mean, I don't like the idea of a state supplement. I don't like the idea of state mandate. I don't like that at all, because I think it's important to have different pays across counties, because that's what makes it desirable. I mean, that's the market. But I'm not sure. It's a difficult job, and they have to incentivize people to do it, to incentivize people to be away from their families on 24-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts for and weekends and holidays, and there has to be some sort of incentive for putting their life on the line. I mean, we are constantly having the conversation that we want to take better care of our military. Why do we not feel the same about first responders in general?
I mean, I don't know that we do. I just like, where does it stop?
Oh,
I mean,
I get that.
Because they, fine, I get it. They do a lot, and their job asks a lot, right? I could not do my sister's job. I couldn't do it for any amount of money. I wouldn't. Mostly because that would send me into a murderous rampage, but that's a different topic. But at some point, there has to be some cutoff that says, we get it. It's a tough job, but you signed up for it. So, I don't know what that number is, but, the rest of the world puts an emphasis on education. And I'm not saying that cops are dumb. So someone do not twist that. But, if you want to be an engineer, you gotta go get an engineering degree. And then you have to work under another engineer for 4 years or 7 years, depending on what school you went to. Then you got to take a big test and do it. Like there's this emphasis on all that. That's I just don't know where you stop with the idea that because you hear people say all the time, "Oh, I wish all cops made $100,000 a year," but I don't know that that's an accurate thing.
So we're going to get into what these candidates believe about the Second Amendment. We're gonna start with Casey Cagle. Casey Cagle is a complicated issue. He doesn't support constitutional carry. He doesn't believe that he believes that our gun laws as they stand are just right. That we don't need any more freedoms than we already have. However, Cagle was endorsed by the NRA.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic.
That should tell you all about what the value of the endorsement of the NRA is.
Well, his most recent comments about constitutional carry and not feeling as though anything needs to be expanded shows, one, how little he knows, because expansion is not the right term. It's restoration. We started with everything. We've lost everything thanks to our government and thanks to Casey Cagle. But it just shows how little Casey Cagle thinks of the actual NRA endorsement, because this came like a week after he was endorsed, and he made these statements in an 11 Alive interview. So he got their endorsement, and then he's already backing up. It's just typical Cagle. He does not deserve to be in office or Georgia.
So we are not going to be endorsing Velcro Boy.
Right.
Hunter Hill has had a lot going on with guns, a whole lot. He's a
lot of flip-flopping.
Yeah, he got, there was some statements released that, he claims that it was, he just misspoke that, regarding, the age in which people should be able to purchase rifles and the age in which people should be able to purchase pistols. So, there's been a lot going on. And then, Hill has, he released that video with the at the range with the poor pistol handling. So that's
bad muzzle control.
Yeah, that's that. So
the NRA gave him an A as well.
I'm wondering if they didn't pull that A rating off of a questionnaire, rather than his voting record, because I think his voting record on Second Amendment issues here in the state is pretty dismal. At least according to some folks with GeorgiaCarry.org, it is.
Yeah, it's I think it's mediocre at best. Next up is Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp has a history in the Senate, so we'll look at that history.
He was pretty conservative when he was a state senator, and depending on how you define, conservative now, I suppose even his work in the Secretary of State's office could be considered conservative. I don't think if Brian Kemp was our governor that we would have any concerns or worries with the Second Amendment. I don't think he would institute training. I don't think, he would be in favor of any types of further restrictions. I don't see that with him, just based on who he's been and his state senate record, but it's been a long time since he's been in the legislature. So,
you know, I went to his Facebook page, Kemp's Facebook page, and his little video on there showed a wide array of him going hunting, and all of them were correct. You know, like when he's bird hunting, you know, it was real obvious he was bird hunting. He had a shotgun, things like that. And then there was another point where he's in an orange vest, and you could see his safety strap that and his chest harness that you would wear when you're deer hunting. And he had a rifle, unlike Cagle, who apparently bird hunts with a lever action rifle with a scope. So so I applaud him at least for his video being accurate.
Folks, you know, I'm going to kind of step out here and just kind of say this: if you have political ambitions and you have decided that you would like to reach out to the outdoor community and the shooting community, if you're not a shooter, that's fine, but hire a technical advisor.
You know, here's what I say, man.
Get with somebody that
don't even do it.
Well, yeah, that would be the best, but you know,
it's like when candidates suddenly find religion, you know, and they show up at church and everything. Man, you can spot that. If you're a guy that's gone to church your whole life, fine, talk about it, you know. But if you just start going when you throw your hat in the ring for an election, man, you better not bring it up, because you'll get eat alive.
We're gonna go join the largest church in the district. That's what we're doing Sunday, baby. All right. And then we have Michael Williams. His statement was on his website on the 24th. Is, when I'm governor, I will sign constitutional carry into law, expand gun rights, and allow all abiding citizens to use their constitutional rights without governmental intrusion or permission. And Williams does have the Senate record to back it up. He has co-sponsored and authored constitutional carry legislation in the Senate multiple times over the past 4 years.
Don't forget his bump stock giveaway.
Yeah. He also gave away a bump stock, which I did rail against, but still, I still think that was a stupid idea. But you know,
why?
It is what it is. Well, I think a bump stock is a stupid idea. I'm not saying that it's, I'm not saying anything about rights. I'm not saying it's not your right to have one. I'm saying it's a stupid idea. I mean, I think it's your right to jump off the roof of your house, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Right. Bump stocks. Have you ever shot one, Jessica?
No.
Okay. So to make one function, it's counterintuitive to it, like if you've handled a gun your entire life and you know your way around them, making a bump stock function is counterintuitive to the way that you would normally shoot. You might as well just take everything you know and throw it out the freaking window.
Well, the honest truth, my experience with the bump stocks, I can take somebody that has very little experience shooting an AR, and I can generally make them get a bump stock running faster than I could, some Marine grunt.
Right, because the Marine grunt knows his way around an AR style weapon. They shoot. So
right.
It's just it's dumb. It's a neat gimmick. It's not. I think they're $350. They're not $350 cool.
So lastly, the last candidate is Clay Tippins.
Oh no! Hold on. Wait a minute. Let's back up for 1 second. Because we're talking about constitutional carry there with that. What's your thoughts on constitutional carry?
Constitutional carry. There's of course, I think that it should. I'm firmly a supporter of constitutional carry. I am. But I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that there's got to be until we can get, nationwide gun rights back the way that they're supposed to be. you certainly still want the ability to purchase a Georgia weapons carry license.
And that's kind of where my thought was.
Yeah,
if we go to constitutional carry, what do I do when I go to Tennessee?
Right.
We don't have that here.
Yeah, that's the issue is that you and a lot of states that have gone to constitutional carry still have that. So that's kind of where my concern is that mostly I want to make sure that if I so choose, I can still purchase a Georgia weapons carry license. That way I can have it when I'm traveling to other states. But other than that, I mean, I'm 100% for Constitution. All right, so Clay Tippins, what we have from Clay Tippins is that on the, he of course, being that he's never been elected, he doesn't have a voting record to pull from, nor a long history of statements. However, the statement on his website says, "I am an unabashed supporter of the Second Amendment. It is our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. I will defend that right as governor." So unless Jessica has anything to add to that, because I know she has spoken to him. So
it's my biggest thing. I don't like career politicians, but I also struggle with people who've never held elected office before, because you don't know who they'll be under pressure. You don't know how they'll be with lobbyists and all of that and political pressure in the times. But I did have the opportunity to speak with him, and I point blank asked him if he would ever support any type of ban or training requirements, and he was a firm no. He also told me that his language in talking about Parkland, he called the incidents heartbreaking, but was pretty clear about the fact that, that shouldn't lead to taking away rights and things that empower law-abiding citizens. So, I mean, his answer was strong. It's just whether or not he will hold to that. But, I mean, he had a clear understanding of shall not be infringed. And I think he called himself unapologetically or unabashedly pro-Second Amendment or something like that. So,
all right.
Yes.
So, cannabis oil, that's going to be our next topic. On the topic of cannabis oil, we'll start with Cagle because he's easy.
Boo!
Cagle has been a consistent roadblock to any type of cannabis legislation. Although he does have a resolution now, so we've got this committee. We're going to study this again. We're gonna do another study, and we've got 10 people, 6 elected officials, 4 private citizens that are going to be on this committee, and we don't know when they're going to meet yet. We don't know who's on the committee yet. So that's but yeah, his thing is he's got another stalling study. With the cannabis, it really it gets pretty simple. Cagle's a no. Kemp is not for in-state cultivation. Hunter Hill is not for in-state cultivation. Michael Williams is for in-state cultivation. As a matter of fact, if you search through the archives on All on Georgia, you will find a video of Michael Williams at a Peachtree Normal meeting where he is discussing his positions on cannabis. The one that gets tricky is Clay Tippins, because if you listen to this show regularly, if you go back to the archives and listen to that time that it all went to pot, we had former state representative Alan Peake on that show, and Alan Peake is a huge supporter of Clay Tippins, and his version is that Clay Tippins is passionately behind medical and behind cultivation and doing what it takes to get a proper medical program running in Georgia. but when you go to his website, it just says access. And Clay Tippins told the AJC that he initially balked at supporting an expansion over slippery slope concerns, but that stance changed after he met some family members. And he's received tens of thousands in contributions from donors tied to medical marijuana firms. So that's kind of, yeah. He's getting money from marijuana, so.
So, all right, about Michael Williams on the cannabis oil and I can't remember, but isn't his stance on this fairly new?
It is. It's fairly new.
I don't mean that to bash him. I mean, if he's had a change of heart, or someone convinced him that his previous line of thought on the matter was wrong, that's great. But I was just curious.
Well, yeah, it is a pretty new line. I know that there was one vote that he walked on. He did not cast a vote. That was a couple years ago. I know that this year he did drop a bill for in-state cultivation, but he dropped it after crossover day. If you're inside politics and you understand the way things work under the Gold Dome, he knew that bill was going nowhere. Basically, just in general, as a general rule, I'll go ahead and tell you, if you don't know, learn what crossover day is, and which crossover day is the last day that bills can go from one side from one chamber to the other. And basically, any legislator that drops a bill after crossover day is not really serious about that bill. Those are just facts. I'm sorry for anybody that gets upset by that, but that's just the reality.
It's true.
Anybody. Yeah, so it's you drop those kind of bills to make statements. When you're doing that, dropping bills after crossover day, you're trying to make a statement. You're not trying to make law. So on illegal immigration, we have some wide and varied opinions that are mostly about the same. Hunter Hill, I stand with President Trump. I am opposed to sanctuary cities that harbor illegal immigrants from being deported. We will hold those who break our laws accountable. As governor, if a city in Georgia decides to harbor illegal immigrants, they won't receive a nickel of state funding. Moving on to Cagle, I think everybody that's in the news and watching the news is quite familiar with Cagle's statements and stances on sanctuary cities. And what is it? Is it Decatur that he's got the issue going with? Yeah.
Well, I think we kind of touched on this just a little bit, maybe in the past episode or two, but illegal immigration is not an issue that gubernatorial candidates would have been talking about 8 or 10 or 12 years ago, other than in Western states bordering Mexico. This is a new thing for them to be so focused, to be running TV ads about it, sponsored Facebook posts all the time, to have it on their campaign website, to assume that states are going to be having a role in this. It's just changed so much.
Right. And, it's, and the thing about it is it's very touch and go on even what a governor, can do, since, the reality of the situation, regardless of how they try to spin it. The reality of the situation is that immigration is a federally enforced thing. It's not something that's enforced by the state. So, and states do not have the power to deport people, which we're going to jump right there. We're going to jump right into Michael Williams' statement. which is that he pledged to give local law enforcement officials more authority to deport immigrants who are in the country illegally. And just being blunt there, if that's your goal, you're running for the wrong office. You need to run for president. But, and he intends to implement the 287G deportation program statewide. And what is the 287G deportation program, Jessica?
So it's the 287G program is how ICE works with federal, state, and local law enforcement in their mission. And I think they're referring to I think the legislature tightened up one of the aspects of this year where law enforcement officials have to report if they found someone on the side of the road during a traffic stop or during an arrest, and they have to report during a certain amount of time. So there's trickle down regulations, and then there's trickle up regulations so that they can all work together. But I think it's an authority that allows them to hold someone, to contact ICE to see if that person is going to be deported.
Here's what I'm reading. It says that it's U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act authorizes the Department of Homeland Security to deputize selected state and local law enforcement officers to enforce federal immigration law. So, yeah, it basically allows them to hold them. Right? Yeah,
so at that point, it does end up being... at that point, you're dealing with a federal agent.
Well, and, there's a lot of rural communities, especially down here, that are federal detention facilities for immigrants and other types of detainees, but it's by and large illegal immigrants. And under the previous presidential administration, I know that a lot of rural jails here lost millions in federal funding because they weren't holding the same amount of people, whether it was for justice reform issues and nonviolent offenders, or it was because of these illegal immigrants. So I'm really kind of interested to see over the next couple years, and this is a little bit of a tangent, I understand, but to see how it affects the local agencies that hold these, because not every jail can just hold someone for ICE. And I'm just interested to see if their money flow increases under Trump or what happens. But, definitely, it obviously helps to have a governor that supports what the president is doing, because look at California. They're throwing a fit out there right now. So
we move on from that to Kemp. The Secretary of State recently unveiled a plan for a criminal alien database. They're going to track the crimes of people who are in the country without documentation and speed their deportations. So,
well, and in the same vein of that, if you think of his role as Secretary of State, didn't he sue the Obama administration twice and win over voter fraud and ID, which was rooted in illegal immigrants and illegal voting?
Right, and then he also, there was 7 times that he stopped the hacker while he was Secretary of State. So, and then Clay Tippins, where's he at on illegal immigration?
So his website just focuses on sanctuary cities. It says, there is no place in Georgia for sanctuary cities, and I will prevent them from receiving state funds. Our law enforcement agencies must collaborate with each other, not against each other, to fight illegal immigration. That process begins by stopping the release of illegals from county jails and sharing intelligence like I did to take down ISIS.
I did not know that. I did not know that Mr. Tippins took down ISIS. But, wow. That's quite impressive, Mr. Tippins.
Where did you read this? Sorry, I was actually reading the PolitiFact ruling on Kemp suing or fighting Obama twice and won to stop illegal immigrants from voting. They rated that claim false.
Did they?
They did. Our ruling, Kemp said he fought Obama twice and won to stop illegal immigrants from voting. The facts don't support Kemp's assertion. The Obama administration allowed Georgia's changes to stop non-citizens from voting to happen. As Secretary of State, Kemp was required to seek approval for the changes from the Justice Department or federal court. He got it from the Justice Department, so the lawsuits were dismissed.
Didn't he have to file a lawsuit to get the approval? I mean, that's kind of like saying, like, if I file a lawsuit to get Oak Park to comply with the open records request and they do it before the lawsuit is adjudicated, that's kind of saying, like, I didn't win, but I did. You know?
All it says here is the experts describe the process as routine under the
Oh, okay.
But then,
these experts
go back
work
and
for
say
the AJC, I'm imagining.
Well, it goes back here and it says the ad is flat wrong to suggest that the Obama administration wanted immigrants in the country illegally to cast votes in elections.
That's a little political there.
Well, here's the thing: is that has exactly jack to do with Kemp saying he fought Obama twice and won to stop illegal immigrants from voting. Like that's.
And for the record, I'll go out, on a limb here and piss a lot of people off and say that, I agree with that statement. I just, I understand illegal immigration happens. I understand, some of the issues, both good and bad, that come from it. But the idea that we are intentionally bringing illegal immigrants into this country with the sole purpose of voting for Democrats is asinine. That's an asinine statement.
You know which one of my views on that pisses people off? I don't care about illegal immigrants. They're coming in and stealing our jobs. Nope, sorry, I don't pick fruit for a living, so they're not taking my jobs.
Yeah. I think that was probably the most heat that I ever got. I was discussing this with some people one night, and I basically stated that if your skill set is so low that you can lose your job to somebody who doesn't speak English
and has no paper,
then
you've made a vocational error.
Yeah, you need to up your skill set. Attend a trade school, something like that, because it's like that's the thing is that even if you go to a construction job, the illegal immigrants, they're out there, they're doing the manual labor. They're not out there, doing what would be referred to as the skilled trades. You're not seeing illegal immigrants, running electricity. You're not seeing them doing things like that. They're out there, they're hauling bricks. They're hauling wood, things like that, carrying roof shingles up on top of a roof. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I did in the later part of last year, I had a very sudden loss of a job and had to pick up a hammer and go to work to feed my kids. And I worked for a finish carpenter where we installed, bars and things like that in hotels. And I didn't see any illegal guys doing that stuff. They were, like I said, they were sweeping the floors and mixing mortar.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I think I made that clear. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think that the impact that they have, even if they apply for all of the various welfares and get them, I don't know how they would do it. And I'm sure they do, but that speaks to me that we need to fix welfare. That's a cheaper, faster, quicker fix for it all. Is fix the welfare system.
Yeah, and look,
I think they're a net benefit to the economy.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that people get all caught up and they end up worrying about the wrong thing. I mean, you want to worry, you want to legitimately worry about foreigners taking your job. If you do anything on a computer, worry about some Indian taking your job.
Right.
That's and doing it from India.
Yes.
That's what you need to concern yourself with. If you're any type of coder, you do anything at all that, anything related to coding, unless it's, very high end stuff. Yeah. Drafting, all of that
my
stuff.
career as a draftsman, and for the last couple of years, a large percentage of my job has been to redline or fix drawings that came over from India. Like, that was just my job.
All right.
Jonathan, who is the loser of the week?
Loser.
Well, give me just a second, because I'm going to have to pull it up. Although I will say, this week, what the hell is that?
That's a dog
tail
wagging
clanking
its tail
on the metal.
Okay. This week, we had our largest participation ever.
That's because Douglas County tried to rig the election.
And they did. With 55.3% of the vote. Governor Nathan Deal for interfering with a local DA's race.
Wow. No
with an
runoff?
appointment. No runoff. Although we did have pretty even numbers. Hunter Hill for flip-flopping on guns came in with 26.3% of the vote, and Chris Carr for negligence and dereliction of duty in Paulding County came in with 18.4% of the vote, which is that was. Turns out that was fake news anyway. Thanks, Matt. So
twice today somebody's accused me of fake news.
Oh, it's happened more than twice. So anyway, congratulations, Governor Nathan Deal, for being this week's loser of the week. You have
earned
won.
it.
You've interfered with Douglas County's elections.
You damn tyrant.
Again. Yeah, you have done quite a bit of damage there. So, all right. So that brings us to. I'd like to nominate the NRA again. This time for moving Hunter Hill mysteriously up from a C to an A.
Okay. Matthew?
You know what? I'm kind of down with that, too.
In the spirit of Deal, shall we just appoint the NRA again?
Only if you explain why.
I tell you what. There's a couple things. And I want to get into this.
Their whole thing with Yeti.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was going. It's two things. It's the magically moving Hunter Hill's NRA grade from a C to an A, which typically you have to look like Jessica to get that kind of grade movement going on. You can't typically pull that off as a short, balding, middle-aged man. Typically you gotta have some hotness going on to pull that off. But anyway, and that's actually a lesser issue to me than this entire issue with Yeti, which we just briefly covered it. I intended for it to be on the show this week, but we
didn't work on the outline.
So much that we wanted. I intended for it to be on the show this week, but we had so much that we wanted to cover with the governor's candidates that I just kind of let that go. So maybe right here on the end is when we can discuss this. But basically, Yeti. What happened? The total synopsis of that is that Yeti had a deal going with the NRA. Basically, where you could, if you were an NRA member, you could purchase Yeti products at a discount. It was kind of a pain for Yeti because the NRA would not warehouse these items. So what ended up happening was that Yeti was having to drop ship these items, every time an order came through the NRA website. That became a real pain for them. Yeti's marketing department did some restructuring, and they changed a lot of the deals that they had with a lot of companies and organizations. Well, the NRA basically had a knee-jerk reaction, basically turned the entire NRA world against Yeti, because Yeti wanted to change the business arrangement that they had with the NRA. And, I mean, the NRA did very real and legitimate damage to a company that I do not believe is anti-gun at all. So, I mean, Matt, what do you think? I know that you follow the gun world pretty closely. I mean, do you honestly believe that Yeti is an anti-gun company?
I do not, and I'll tell you why. Because I see their products in a lot of the hunting shows that I watch. I see their products in the hunting and outdoor trade shows that I attend. And typically, I don't believe a company would be seen there if that's how they felt about guns.
Right, and I agree. And basically what it's looking like now is it's looking like that all of this basically comes down to, I believe that what Yeti was asking, and this is just from my research on this and actually calling Yeti and getting one of their press chicks on the phone and all that, is that it basically sounds like that Yeti's basic intention was that they wanted the NRA to warehouse these products and handle their own shipping. And the NRA was not willing to do that, so they cut the deal off that they had with them. And because of that, now we've got idiots on YouTube blowing up $400 coolers with tannerite.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Hashtag support the NRA. So, yeah, there's a lot of nonsense there. So, for that reason, by executive fiat, I am appointing the NRA once again as loser of the week. Over in Paulding County, we have yet another episode of Matt Lowe was locked out of a public meeting. So,
well, there's some. We're trying to figure out if it was a public. I think it was actually by law would be a limited access forum, which is kind of weird because it still it doesn't actually mean limited access. But the law is the same one that governs if like a college opens up, and has a speaker come in, say someone like Hannity or O'Reilly or whoever, comes in, they can't keep a liberal student organization from showing up and talking or whatever. It's that same kind of law that guides that. Just like Christian or faith-based colleges can't keep a Buddhist guy from attending or whatnot. But anyway, there was anybody that keeps up with Paulding politics knows that we have an airport out here that is like it's a damn cancer on this county is what it is. But we're suing ourselves. We're being sued over this airport and whether or not it is going to offer commercial flights. And it has been probably the most divisive issue in this county ever. Well, I was at the Board of Commissioners meeting, and phones started dinging, emails were flying. There's a lot of flurry, just in all the people there. And it turns out that there was some kind of meeting down the road that was pro-commercialization in nature. So because I wanted to write about the airport, but I wanted to write about it without all the hyperbole that you see from both sides, I thought a good way to do that is just show up, go see what they're talking about, and then write my articles, with research from both sides of it. And like, so I get there and I tell them who I am and what I wanted. And like, they wouldn't even open the door. It was locked. They wouldn't speak to me except through the door. One guy was typing his messages on the screen of his phone, like in a note thing, and putting his phone to the door. So yeah, they kept me locked out. Turns out that the lady who was the keeper of the keys, the gate guard, if you will, was the wife of Commission Chairman Dave Carmichael.
What about you, Jessica? I know that you had mentioned Oak Park in passing earlier.
Oak Park continues to be ever so entertaining and unpredictable. The police chief kind of threw everyone through the ringer a couple weeks ago when he said at the meeting that he was going to call for a full GBI investigation and a forensic audit. So that kind of changed the direction of everything I was doing and what the people were doing. And then on Monday night, actually, they decided that they were not, the council denied the request for a forensic audit. So there won't be a GBI investigation, there won't be a forensic audit, and we're kind of just in limbo until I get the rest of my records, which I'm hoping to get this week. So.
Well, all right. And it's, anybody have any closing thoughts?
Early voting starts today, April 30th.